Good afternoon, and welcome to Everybody, the podcast which shares stories that highlight people in life that make the world an interesting place, which ultimately ties us all together in unique and wonderful ways. And who am I, you might ask? I would be the head wrapped socialite, wife, mom, micro influencer in the fashion and etiquette world. But on this podcast, I will be introducing you to some people who I've had the opportunity to meet along my journey, who have helped enrich me and my life in beautiful ways, and who I hope will do the same in yours.
Today's special guest is Carmella F, whom I've known for 50 years now. Carm's parents and her family used to live next door to my grandparents. So as you can imagine, as childhood friends, we basically lived at each other's homes. So to have some of your best friends live next door, what more could you possibly ask for? I would like to introduce you all to one of my best friends from a long time ago, Carmella F. Hi, Carm. Welcome.
Good morning, Trina. Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
I'm so glad you're here. Carm, can you tell the listeners a little bit about who you are?
Well, my name is Carmella F, and I was born and raised in Crestmont, PA, and I have two sisters, Michelle and Danielle F, and we were brought up in a very loving community, and everybody looked out for one another. We grew our own food. We had our ups and downs, and if we struggled, we knew nothing about it because
Right.
that was grown folks' business.
Mhm.
We just knew how to be kids. We got through things together and we worked it out. We had your grandparents, our grandparents, and our aunts and uncles. I come from a large family. My mother there were 9 of them,
Mm.
and they all lived in Crestmont,
Mhm.
from the Flippings, Dennises, Fitzgeralds, Grasties, and the Dinkins.
So, Carm, could you tell me a little bit about your parents, who they were?
Well, my mother was Wilhelmina. She was born and raised West Philadelphia. She was born at home. And my dad was Herbert Matthew. He was born in Bluefield, West Virginia. And then he came here to Crestmont and he met my mother in high school in 61. And they were inseparable. They were high school sweethearts. They got married until death do them part. My parents, Trina, they worked hard. My mom worked in a factory,
Right.
and she stayed at home to take care of us. And my dad worked as a welder. My dad, he loved fishing, hunting. He did whatever he needed to do to keep the food on the table, the roof over our head. And then whenever he went fishing, he made sure everybody else in the neighborhood had food too.
Because I can remember being this little girl, and anytime Mr. Herbert, that's what we called him. This is the best thing about living next door to somebody who fishes. He would cook the fish. He would leave it on the stove. Carm, I don't know if you remember, you had these plates. They were brown, and your dad would always put the fish on paper towels after he fried them on the stove. And I went to sneak into your house. I would sneak in there.
You are so right. That is true.
And I would sneak and rip off pieces of fish and just eat them. And I'm telling you, those are the best. And your dad would be like, and he knew it was me. Okay. I would be the only one ripping off little pieces of fish. And he would be like, who was stealing my fish?
Not to mention, Trina, my dad had the garden, and your grandfather, Frank, and your grandmother, Liz, and they would go and get some fresh vegetables, collard greens, squash, string beans, cabbage, and have it for dinner.
Yes. Those were like the simple days, but they were just so wholesome and just so good. We can't forget that your dad used to let us pick dandelion.
And make the wine.
We didn't partake in the wine, but
no, but
But he would tell all the neighborhood kids, like, okay, we're gonna be
All
picking.
the neighborhood kids, yes.
So we'd be so happy. We'd be contributing something, and we'd pick the dandelions for your dad so he could make the dandelion wine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, those were some of the best times.
Yes. And we all came together, good times and bad times. But Trina, whatever our parents was going through, just like I said earlier, we didn't know about it because it was none of our business.
Right. Yeah, it's like adults kept adult business adult. And part of me thinks they knew, what was coming ahead for us in years to come. So they wanted to allow us to be kids for as long as we could be kids, because we all know adulting is hard.
Yes, it is. There was no internet. There was no iPhones, and we had one phone.
Yeah.
And that was on the wall.
Exactly. And I dare you try to take the long cord that was attached to the wall and go into another room, because there was always somebody there listening.
Absolutely.
That's so true. Just such simpler times, but it made for the best times. The one thing that I will share with you about your dad, Saturday mornings was the time where I'm to get together with friends, even for that morning cup of coffee or morning breakfast. And your dad would always come to my grandparents' home, have his cup of coffee. And by that time, usually I was at my grandparents' house like early in the morning, like Saturdays, if I didn't sleep over on Friday nights. But I would be at the kitchen table, and I would always have a coloring book and my crayons. And I will never forget sitting down with your dad. He would color with me. He would make all of the women brown. He would mix colors together so that the ballerinas on the page always color them brown. And that instilled in me, without me even knowing, a love for my brown skin. I just wanted to share that with you. It was something that even to this day, 50 years later, I still hold in my heart.
Oh, Trina, you're making me that right there is really making me so emotional right now.
Oh, Carm.
That is awesome. Because that's
what we do for each other, right?
That's what we do for each other. And we need that. All of the things that our ancestors, our parents, grandparents taught us, we pass them on through our children.
Yeah.
And the stories and the history. So anything that our parents taught us, make sure you tell, your children, and you teach them, tell them, because a child's mind is like a sponge. Absorbs everything. They watch and they learn from us. And as adults, we are still learning.
You're right about that. I was thinking too about self-esteem. I love my different quotes. Oprah says, self-esteem means knowing that you are the dream, right? So when you give that self-esteem, I think back to when I was sitting there coloring with your dad. Like, he put it into my mind that you can be anything that you want to be.
Exactly. Be yourself and don't be ashamed of color of your skin.
Exactly. Because it's not just one type of person that can do these things. You and your brown skin can do these things as well.
And don't let anybody else tell you otherwise.
There you go.
Parents always told us, if you're going to get a million no's, but you're going to get that one yes that's going to open up the door.
I like that. And Carm, what things have you learned about life this far?
Well, Trina, life shows you a whole lot of things, and we are learning every day.
Right.
And life is going to be what you make it to be. There are times when you're going to be like, what the hell is this? Are you testing me? What did I do? Who? But you got to get back on your feet. You need a hand up and not a handout.
That's it.
Me being as a single parent, sometimes it's hard to raise a boy.
What have you learned from being a single mom? Can you share?
Well, Trina, you take one day at a time. Do what you can do. You're going to have good days. You're going to have your bad days. You're going to struggle. but do what you can, because we as single parents, there's a lot of things that are good that come out of that. You raised them,
Mm-hmm.
and then you got to let them go. My child is 37. I'm always going to worry about my child, Matthew. Not a child, but he is my child.
Mm-hmm.
You're always going to do for your kids, no matter their age. Mom, I need. Mom, can you help me? Mom, because that's what our parents did
Yeah.
until they closed their eyes.
Yeah.
And I'm always going to do the same thing until I close my eyes.
Well, Carm, just hearing you speak about your son and being a single mom, I just think about just the journey. There are different pieces and different themes that we all have to experience. And like you said, it's not always going to be happy times and roses, but that's not what life is. Life is the joyous times, but it's also the hard times. And in that, we have, God willing, family, friends, acquaintances that help us pick up those pieces and help us to continue on our journey. No matter how hard it is, there's always going to be somebody, I believe, that God places in our paths.
Come on now.
That help us along when we think that we can't carry that burden any longer. That's what I truly believe.
You are absolutely right on that part. And it makes us stronger, and we learn.
Yeah.
And we move on.
That's it. The learning piece, right?
Exactly.
The growth. Important to us to becoming the very best beings that we can be while we're here.
Come on.
It's like we've been very blessed with the neighborhood that we grew up in. It was a very, very special pocket of, I'll say, the universe, that we grew up with. Because if you think about it, a whole lot of us are still friends to this day. There's never
absolutely
where I don't go back home and I don't go back to see who is still in the neighborhood and visit those people. But we had that, and I am and will be forever
grateful every day.
Before we close up the interview, I just want to ask, is there anything you wished I would have asked you that I did not ask you about?
Trina, I just want to say that I'm very thankful for people that we had in our lives, our parents, our grandparents, the people in the neighborhood in Crestmont, how we just came together and we looked out for one another, the stories that we shared, the love that was given us. We take what we have and just continue to hold on to those beautiful memories.
Yeah.
And talk about them with our children and our grandchildren.
I agree with you, Carmen. It's our job to continue the legacy and to continue to spread the love and to share the love that they gave to us with others and with the next generations. I just want to say, Carmen, thank you so much for spending this time with me and for sharing with the listeners who you are and why you mean so much to me in my life and in my family's life. And I'm so glad that God allowed us and our families to meet on this journey.
Absolutely.
Family for life.
And we are.
I love you, Carm.
Love you too, Trina.
In honor of your mom, I'm going to make myself a glass of iced tea.
There you go.
We'll talk soon.
Yes. Thank you, Trina.
You're welcome. Thanks, Carm. Ciao.
Ciao.